gets the most views. So give me a second here. Hey, friends, welcome to Answers with Experts. We're so excited to have you today. We've got a great lineup. We've got John with Humanitude, Robert with Saddlebrook and Frisco, and I'll introduce him to you in one moment. So stay tuned as we get started. We're so happy you're here for this episode of Answers with Experts. So I'm going to introduce to you our VIP host today, as well as our expert from Humanitude, who's going to be answering some really challenging questions this week. However, I want to make sure you know about something. So throughout this episode, this live stream, you're invited to put your comments in, put your questions in, put your own experiences in. That's what makes this worth doing live. Otherwise, we could just record it and edit it and share it with the world. The whole reason we do this is to get you being able to ask questions as well. So just to incentivize that, we do have a book that we're giving away, and we won't give it to everybody, but we'll pick at least one person who's interacting today and give them this book. It's by Dr. John Medina, and it's called Brain Rules for Aging Well. It's one of the best books. If you're actually concerned about your brain and your brain being able to be amazing as you age, you definitely need this book. So we'll be sending that book out. So I'd like to introduce Robert BRALEY. Robert is coming to us from Frisco, Texas. What's it like in Frisco right now, Robert?
It's sunny. Thank you, Benjamin.
It's sunny. Good. Well, Robert comes to us with over 10 years of experience in the senior living arena, and he's been working to help seniors in all kinds of settings, from assisted living, independent living, memory care. He's been a regional, he's been executive director. He currently is executive director at Saddlebrook in Frisco, Texas, which is becoming known in Frisco for being one of the most cheerful places with one of the most cheerful teams in the entire city. So, Robert, thanks for being here. Why don't you go ahead and take it from here and introduce John to us?
Yeah. Thank you, Benjamin. I really appreciate that. And welcome, everybody, to Answers with Experts. I'm going to be introducing John. He is a registered nurse, and he leads the Humanitude team. He's an instructor across the globe. He leads the team and trains over 50,000 professionals in the industry across Europe and Asia. So let's welcome John.
Hi, everybody. Here I am.
Hey,
once again. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
All the way from Singapore, by the way. That's why I chose to be with this scene behind me, just to make it a bit more show-offy, you know.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being with us, John. And I know we were speaking a little bit prior to the call, and you were saying that y'all are searching for additional English-speaking instructors for your team. So if anyone has anyone in mind to share with John, he would be grateful.
Yeah, we're always on the lookout. You know, like the demand is getting so high that we're struggling to cope with it. So yeah. So it would be handy to have an English-speaking trainer over in the US for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to have questions that we're going to review today that we've received over the last few weeks, and then if anyone wants to add any questions throughout the Answers with Experts episode, we would be glad to receive them and answer and get them on the screen. So our first question comes from Debbie Newport. Sorry. She is asking, when is the right time to move a family member into assisted living or memory care?
Hi, I'm Debbie from Copper Creek Inn Memory Care. As a director of community relations, I meet with people and help them navigate when the challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia become too much for just one person at home. A lot of times I get the question, when? When is the right time to move my loved one into a memory care setting? Sometimes it's easy. It's a social worker or discharge planner saying after a fall they can't go home anymore. But sometimes the daughter wants her mom to choose a memory care community. And sometimes the spouse is meeting with us and they're having chest pains during our meeting. So we want to know, what does ready look like?
Yeah, these weeks are incredible questions because they're quite common to come up, but they're incredibly complex to answer with a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, because every person is unique, every case is unique, and all the conditions are the variants that are implied on the conditions, they will differ on the answer that we can provide. So, but on this situation, what okay, by the book, the answer is never, right? We know that ideally people would age in place and live at home for as long as they could, ideally until the end, because most of the time that's what they desire. I'm assuming that on this condition, this is the situation that the person is quite reluctant of going. But on the other hand, from my professional experience, many times when that decision is made, sometimes already too late. Because with the progressive memory loss, it can also occur a problem of orientation, being struggling to understand where they are. And this can bring a sufferance, a lingering sufferance that people cannot recognize where they are, and they cannot recognize where they belong to, and it can be quite stressful and anxious related. So ideally, we would start promoting the transition into a community in a progressive way. So what I've been advising all over the world is to create recognition patterns, and we can start by visiting just the space, just to get familiarized with the space first, get to know the staff, get to know the routines, and eventually, when we have this build up, then we start staying longer and longer and longer and see how the person copes with it. It can be quite strange. I know that this, and I wanted to say this at the early stages of today's talk, because I know that many people have different views on this. Sometimes we have this fervent idea that we just transfer in and we step out of there and leave the person to deal with it and come to terms with it. But we also know is that emotional distress is also compromising the ability to consolidate new memories. So by rule of thumb, we all know that the calmer we are, the more secure we feel, the easier it is for us to have a good cognition. Like if I have a car accident at the moment, I don't really know what to do. I get stressed out and my brain stops working. It's normal. It's how it is. So if we do this transitioning in a smoother, more calm approach, it's fundamental. And also, I would always advise to try to contact a professional that can help you to progress, to design kind of a transitioning program or a plan, because this is something that most communities are well adjusted and well used to do. So yeah. But by rule of thumb is when you start seeing. Okay, I don't want to. Again, it's hard to be pinned down, but I'm going to be a bit more technical and I'm going to be a bit more bolder. When you start seeing symptoms of what is called anterograde amnesia, that the person cannot remember things for the future, this is already a big sign that something is happening. Imagine that you say that tomorrow you're going to go for lunch, and then you arrive the next day and the person could not remember you telling that you were supposed to go for lunch. Okay, that's already a sign that the memory is struggling to consolidate new memories. So this is already a yellow flag, and if these start to occur on a very, very short period of time, like, one thing is if this happens once every month, but if it starts happening every day, then it's already a big sign that we're going to have to transfer quite soon. Otherwise, the person will not have any memory of their surroundings, and it will be struggling every day. And it's really painful to watch sometimes, because they can get quite anxious by not being familiarized with the place. I can add more, but I know we have time constraints. Just to give another hint, it's just if you move in, then try to adjust the place to make it somewhat familiar. So the tricks we advise is to bring some key elements of the home into the new space, like a blanket, a carpet, a painting, something that when you walk into that home, you feel home, because there it is, my something, this is what I recognize. So if that element of decoration moves in with the person, it can help for the person to associate that place with their own home.
Yeah, those are excellent points. And I mean, over the years, I usually recommend to families to just start the process of learning and being educated on the disease process. And normally having professionals such as ourselves or people in the industry as a resource. So when that time comes, and if they're ready, we're always here for them. But just being aware of everything and what to expect. Beautiful points.
Yeah. I think up until now we were struggling quite a lot with the disease, and with a social shame associated to it. Like there was a Fabrice Gilles, a French philosopher, was describing it as the black plague of the 21st century. That people are afraid of. Maybe it's contagious, maybe it's me, and then we still hide it a little bit between. First of ourselves, we hide it from others, and then others hide it from the others. And it's kind of still a bit of a. And this is starting to fade off, and this is a good sign. We're starting to openly talk about it and answer these questions. We're still finding it out every day, really, because it's nothing that we know for sure. But I think to use the resources that you have in hand without having an issue with that, without having a fear or a shame about it, I think it's the first step. Look for help, look for answers, and use the people that are on the setting already.
Yeah, excellent. So our next question comes from Debbie, and I think we'll play that clip real quick. Benjamin?
Hi, I'm Debbie, Director of Community Relations at Copper Creek Inn. Once a family caregiver has decided to move their loved one into our all-memory care community, most of the questions center around the transition. A common one is, should I stay away after I move my loved one in? And if so, how long? While we could never replace the family caregiver's role, how can we help the family caregiver create space for us to share in the care and to develop our own trusted relationships with their loved ones without asking them to stay away?
Yeah, it's a very dichotomic situation when we start to see the family. Okay, so maybe I have a different approach to the whole thing, because I started off as a family caregiver. So the first time I came in touch with the dementia was with my grandfather. So that kind of gave me the clues that we had a key role and we were clueless about it. It took me many years to realize it, and but now I feel the need to share it with the world, that the family has a role in caregiving, and it's what I call either relational caregiving or emotional caregiving, which is we have a bond with the person that is very unique and nobody else can have, because we have a history together, we have each other's traits, we have each other's personalities. We know the person way too much to be able to transfer that into someone else. It's not because I'm a professional caregiver that I'm able to be a better caregiver than you are. I can be more technically accurate, but in terms of establishing a trust relationship with a person, it will depend, of course, of the background history that the family has with this person. But obviously, I'm going to struggle as a professional. So I don't like to take away the family. Never. Quite the opposite. I know that the family is already coming in a struggle. So people, I tell this everywhere I go. When the family usually brings the person into a community setting, they are already feeling quite frustrated, disappointed, anxious, fear, angry, all sorts of emotions. Sometimes it's all of them at once. And when they come to us, sometimes they even transfer these emotions to us, the care professionals, because we are the ones capable of taking them in. So I never put the family away. I always want the family to be with me, and at least to the person understand that we are all together and we're all in the same boat and we're all trying to do the best for this person. And this does not mean that it will block my interaction with the person. Quite contrary. What I usually say, and I ask the family, is to help me to create that bond. In the same way that, I have a good friend of mine that I want to introduce you to. He's John. Okay, so please, you be that. And then sometimes people have been used to be told, wait outside while I do the care. I usually ask, come inside while I do the care. And sometimes people are even a bit shy, afraid, embarrassed, disgusted even, because sometimes we still think that care can be a bit an odd thing to do. But the fact is that we all care for each other. It's a human trait since we're born. And even when we're adults, we care for each other differently, but we do. Like when I say, how are you? I'm caring for you. When I ask you, come out with me, let's go and grab a coffee, I'm caring for you. Now I need to care for you in many other ways. There are some more hands-on, but there is still this care that the person needs to say that I like you, I want you, I need you, hang on in there, everything's going to be all right. And if the family can do that with me, they're going to be more efficient. And also, while they're doing that, I can, one, teach the family on how to do that more hands-on, more technical, and also empower the family to be more participative during care. But also I can learn from the family what tricks do they use to establish that connection, what words do they use, how do they interact with the person, what stories do they have in common. Because when the family is not there, because I know the family cannot be there all the time, and that's why they move into the community setting, I can use those stories, I can use those tricks to establish that trusting relationship. So I would say the opposite. When the person moves in, I would ask the family to be there as much as they can, and slowly then, as they feel comfortable and as the person feel comfortable, to start to separate. Some families, obviously, they don't have the time to be there the whole day. Sometimes they have the opportunity to be there once a month. Okay, so whatever they can, it's very good. I'm not going to put the family away, and I'm not going to put the family under stress. I know that already the family comes with all this burden, so I want the family to be part of our community. And this is what I've been doing, and to be honest, I think it's been very, very appreciative, one, by the family, and I think the overall, I mean, the results speak for itself, but of course, for the residents, I think this is the best solution we have, really.
Excellent. I mean, that's exactly how I would have answered the same question. My grandfather also suffered from Alzheimer's for 13 years, and I got to see that personally as he went through that and be a family caregiver. So exactly the way I would have answered that. So I've been asked the same exact question from families, because a lot of people tell them the complete opposite of what we're saying. They should stay away to help them get acclimated. But I think family involvement is huge. Helping them transition into a community is powerful. And
yeah, I compare it a bit to the Ferberization method. Kind of for many years in pediatrics, there was the idea that self-soothing would be the answer. And of course, we survived through it. I mean, I probably went through it, so it didn't really kill us, but it's not the most efficient one, we find out. So I know that for many years, because of many reasons, I don't want to be putting them out in the open, because it needs more context about the history of caregiving, the culture of caregiving, understanding all these values and all these practices. But there is visiting hours in the hospital still nowadays, and then we can be very strict about the visiting hours, which they don't make much sense when we're talking about a home setting. I don't want to say even the hospital setting, but okay, at least the home setting. So, but still, some places still are very grounded, deeply rooted on this practice, because this is how it is. But it doesn't necessarily work in favor of anyone. The more distant we become, the more difficult it is to communicate, and this is for the resident, for colleagues, with families, with everybody, really. So the closer we are, the more we understand each other, the more we see what we're doing or what are we up to every day, the better the communication is.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think those are great points. And so here we go. We're going to go on to Ron's question. So take it away, Benjamin.
Hi. We have many couples that come to Amber Creek. We have quite a few couples that are actually currently living here. And one of the biggest issues we seem to have is that the family members aren't real sure how to handle it when they come to visit and find their loved one holding hands with someone else. They don't fully understand what relationships are like inside the community. Can you give suggestions on how best to explain that to the family members and help them get past that?
Yeah, this question is very well worded, to be honest, because first of all, it is with a true sense of helping. And okay, humans need each other. We are interdependent, we need each other, and we need to feel loved. We need that validation from each other. I need for me to feel good about myself, I need others to tell me that I'm good. It's very hard for me to self-sustain this self-esteem. So when I move into a community, I feel, like all of us, when we go into a new setting, a new group of people, we feel lost. We start to try to build connections if we have the energy, the momentum to do so. Because if we have a bit of a mental issue, like a bit more depressed, a bit more low motivation, it is very hard to initiate and to approach and to do. And if I have an introvert personality, it's hard to do so. It takes a lot of energy for me to engage and to establish that connection with someone. So obviously, if someone is able to do that, that's already a very good sign. So basically, if I see someone establishing a pair, even if it's an intense romantic pair, I see that as, first of all, as a positive note. The person is getting adjusted to the setting and is seeking someone in the setting to accommodate this need, to accommodate this desire. Another thing is the way we express love can be can vary a lot from culture to culture. Okay, holding hands can have many meanings. The fact that I hold my son's hand to cross the road doesn't mean that I love him like romantically. It means that I love him in a way that I care for him, and this is a securing handle. So if I go and search someone on the room and I want to hold someone's hand, this doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go to bed with this person. This might mean just like I feel more safe when I'm with this person. Okay, so this is something that we can actually see as a positive note as well. Another thing is people need, and something that we are not used to talk about is sexuality, but people need affection. And many times this affection, because we associate it many times to sexuality, and sexuality is intercourse, and therefore it's malpractice, like it's kind of a train that we jump. It's a thought process that we do very quickly. We block these signs of affection very often. Sometimes unwillingly, most of the times unwillingly, sometimes on purpose, of course, and sometimes they have to be as well because of hypersexuality. But many times we don't show much affection. We are busy, we're running around, we have many things to do, and we forget. Just like when our spouse says, like, "Where are my flowers?" It's I forgot. So the thing is that we block these, and people need to search for them from somewhere. So where are we going to get them from? So we need to find a solution for that. If you're able to transfer this from one person to another, the better. If you're not, then there's another step, and that's like a mentality step, which is the kind of love that we have. Like, I know this is easier said than done, because obviously anthropologically we see love as a binomial thing. I love you, you love me, and we're going to love each other for the rest of our lives. But if we really look at the Greek kind of love, that the Greeks were already very liberal back in the day, they talked about this agape love, which is the love that frees us all. So I love you so much that I want you to pursue happiness, and I want you to be free to pursue your happiness in any way. As long as you're happy, I'm happy because I love you. And this is a huge mental jump. Of course, I know that this is easier said than done, because there's emotions, there can be jealousy, which is most normal. There can be many things. So I think in the end, first, if the person is looking for someone, that's a good sign. If the person is finding someone, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is an intercourse related relationship, or like it not necessarily going to go all the way. It can be just for safety, just for reassuring. If the person is doing that with someone else, we can try to transfer that into something else, into maybe you come more often and you be here on the key moments of the day, because this is when things get heated. Or you start seeing it as a natural thing that's going to happen. As long as she's happy, you're going to be happy because she's well adjusted. I've seen as well people that cannot come to terms to this, and they decide to separate physically or sometimes geographically. Like you go to different parts of the community or even change communities for that, which obviously can be also a solution. If it is a good solution for the resident, not likely, not likely at all. So I think we have to come to terms to it. It's not the person that needs to come to terms to it. But again, I know that this is easier said than done, so it takes a lot of communication, a lot of understanding, a lot of back and forth. But once we start to talk about it, I think that's when the things start going the right way. Like if you're holding that grudge, if you're not talking about it, then this can go into anger and into rage, and can start personalizing and blaming people that have no fault really to be blamed for. So yeah, thank you for the question, really.
Excellent. Sounds really good. So I always like to educate families, and when they start that conversation, that definitely is a good thing, because then they're wanting to be involved and see their loved one getting quality of life. I always remind our teams that behavior is communication. So if they are experiencing those romantic moments with other people, they're showing that they're trying to find comfort, like you said, and they're trying to deal with any type of sense of loss, that type of thing. So beautiful.
Another thing I can add is, on the family side, we can also look for the grief process. Try to identify which stage are they. When they come in and they tell you, with the hints that they're telling you, is it denial? Is it rage, anger, frustration? Is it negotiation? Is it acceptance? So we kind of, by finding out which stage we are dealing with, then we can adjust as well how do we respond to it. But again, every case is unique, And I've also been to situations that people really want to go all the way, So this is also a taboo topic, but that we should be talking about eventually, because, okay, opening the book, we've denied this as a need. If we look at it in terms of theory, the sexual need is not addressed in any caregiving book. So it's been neglected for many, many, many years. And now all of a sudden we're being exposed to certain situations, and we need to understand that it is a natural need. We all have it. And again, sexuality is not just going all the way. It's sometimes just a kiss, a hug, being on your lap, being cuddling, things. All these are important for our satisfaction as humans and for our quality of life.
Thank you, John. I wanted to remind the audience that if they have any additional questions that are not being asked, or if you'd like to throw in an additional question, we'd be happy to receive those and answer those questions throughout this episode. But we're going to move right along. Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say, and if any of the answers we're giving, if you feel that there needs a bit more explanation, a bit more detail to it, please bring it up, and
Perfect.
We'll try. They're not easy questions, and they're very complex. You guys are professionals and you've been up with it, so that's why you're hoping that I have one size fits all solution. There's no fairy dust, really.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's great. Just if anybody has anything to add, I agree totally. So we'll move right along, and we'll hear Ron's next question.
We have a lot of people that visit our community that are not sure how much space is needed for a family member to move in. Do they need an apartment with multiple rooms, with enough space for all the treasures they've collected over the years, or should they reduce down to basically a bedroom size, where the family member is using that room for just that, a bedroom, and using the rest of the community to occupy their time? Can you give us a good way to explain isolation and why they don't need as much space as the family may think they need?
Yeah, with the evolution of our lives, we tend to accommodate to smaller and smaller spaces. Sometimes I see people that have this huge. Well, I can actually give an example of a lady that was living in her own palace. She had a huge estate, and she literally set up her whole life in one of the rooms of the estate. So she had literally made a small studio apartment in one of her huge living rooms. So sometimes we have the idea that people use a lot of space, but not necessarily. So the first thing I would ask is like, when the person comes with this idea of going big, it's like, how much space would your mother, father, spouse would use in daily? Okay, so what were they about? And the biggest and the largest space that people use many times is actually outdoors, because inside the house people actually are pretty grounded in one or two rooms by the end of their life. They go from the sitting room or the kitchen that has a couch and one bedroom and the toilet, and pretty much that's it. And then some people that are more expansive, they go outside. They use more of the outdoors if they have that condition. So many times for us it's not necessarily important to have a huge room, unless the person is actually quite introverted and will actually recluse to the room very, very often. And this is something, and this is what usually it's people that are very kept to themselves. They usually like to read, they like to keep it quiet. For these people we need to start thinking that maybe to live in an open space in a communal area can be quite difficult, because all the noises, they will be disturbing, everybody coming to interact, all the commotion is disturbing. So these people might actually benefit from for having a room of their own and staying in their room. The size of the room, that varies really. I see places that are huge, I see places that are quite small, and ultimately I say this everywhere, that it's not the walls that make a good home. A good home many times comes from the emotional environment associated to it. So how do I feel when I'm there? Okay, when they say that home is where my heart is, it is kind of true. Like, where do I feel that I belong, where do I feel comfortable, and where do I feel safe? A small room can provide me just as much comfort, quite as a small as a big room. And to be honest, a big room can actually be very discomforting, because if it's empty, if it's cold, that the size. Okay, I know it's kind of obvious, but size doesn't matter. Okay, what we need to see is what are you going to utilize, how are you going to utilize the space. Okay. And after finding out how we're going to utilize the space, okay, let's find out a place that is suitable for you. Maybe you need a place that is closer to the library. Maybe you need a place that is closer to the garden. Maybe you need a bigger room because you want to bring like 50 couches in. Or, to be honest, all you need is a little armchair and a shelf with a few pictures, and you'll be good. So, but by rule of thumb, standard rooms fit perfectly, because more and more Humanitude units, it's the units that we call that fill in the criteria to provide a certain level of quality of care. What they're starting to do is you can rent the room empty, like, so you just rent the room empty, and you can utilize it as you will. We would have to add a few more things to this, because it needs to be, if you need assistance from caregivers, it needs to be ergonomically adjusted. So it's not just, but still it can be yours. I've been into rooms that were actually just a kitchen, and like a place that you could dine, and shelves, and a reclining armchair, because that lady, that's where she slept at home, on a reclining armchair. So she actually didn't want a bed, because she never used a bed. So there was no point of having a bed in that room. We utilized the space differently. But this lady was still very independent. If she would need help, perhaps the armchair is not very ergonomically friendly for the care staff to go and help her on. So we need to be thoughtful of that as well. Like for us at home, as we live through it, our home is adjusted and adapted to our needs and to our idea of comfort. So you can rent a room that is empty. You can rent a room that is pre-installed with the basic furniture, or you can rent a room that is fully furnitured for you. So they already have like 3 options for you, depending on what you expect from our services. But obviously, independently of the style of the renting that you're doing, we would always encourage you to bring elements from your own home, which means that decorative elements would go into the bedroom, and not only, also to the communal areas. So we go into Humanitude units that have portraits and paintings and things that belong to the people that are living there at the moment. When the person passes away, of course, the family can retrieve those items or can leave them behind, and it's all an option. But as long as that house is from that person, there are elements that belong to that person, which is good as well, again, for the spatial orientation and spatial reference that the person needs when moving in. So yeah, so this would be the idea. So size is not important, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to add to that. Excellent, great points. We actually have a lot of families that come to our community, and we help them with resources and helping them move in. And they ask that question all the time. Is this large enough? A lot of families are thinking that way because they're coming sometimes from a house, and a house is a lot larger. But I think they're already overwhelmed, and you're just gonna, less is more, to be honest.
And many times it's even regulated. Like there's a minimum that is a minimum. Okay, we know that less than that you can't even move. But better than think of size is like, what are you gonna do with it? Like, how does your mother live at home? She might have a 50-bedroom estate. It's okay. I mean, she used it once in her life, but now what is she doing with that? She probably just sits in the living room and goes to the bedroom when the night comes, and so she uses 2 rooms of that all of that estate. So no, yeah, I think it's just an idea. Like how do I compensate? How do I demonstrate love? I buy a bigger house, I buy a bigger car, I love you so much that I give you a bigger gift. So I'm moving you in, and I'm suffering with that transition because I feel that I'm failing you, because I know ideally I would be there for you, I would care for you until the end, you'd stay at home until the end, and now comes to the time that you cannot anymore, and I feel bad for that. So how am I going to compensate that? I'm going to get you a very big room. That does necessarily mean that's not necessarily mean the best decision, really.
Yeah. One last thing to add on that. I always remind families that it should be less overwhelming when you have a smaller space, especially in dementia care, and the whole community is their new home. I mean, the dining room is their kitchen, the living room is their living room, so they're going to be out and about and having a quality of life, and the apartment is for their bedroom. So yeah, great stuff. So we have our next question is from Amanda, and so we'll hear from Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm a community relations director. And the question that I have really revolves around how I can help coach children when they're looking for assisted living and their parent is unwilling, either unwilling to consider or unwilling to come. And the children often are just so not comfortable having the kind of directional conversation of, you need to do this, mom, or you need to do this, dad. So an example would be, I had a daughter who had come in recently because her father, who's 95, lives way out in the country on a sloped property by himself. He has been resistant to caregivers. He's been resistant to family living there. Really just felt like he could be completely independent. And so a few weeks ago, right at the end of August, he had gone out to walk his property, got caught up in some blackberry bushes and ended up falling into the blackberry bushes, got all scraped up, and he was unable to get back up. And this was pretty early in the day. It was like a 90-degree day. He ended up spending the whole day just laid out in his yard. He tried to army crawl back up to his house, but was unsuccessful. And he wasn't found until the evening when his grandson had gone up to check on him because he hadn't answered the phone. And the daughter really thought it could be, the situation that would help her propel her dad into moving into a safer option. But he really just kind of placated her, went to do tours, but always had it in his mind that he wasn't going to go, had this mentality of I'd rather die up here than go into a home or anything like that. So she had tried reaching out to APS. She tried having us do home visits, really trying to help him see her point of view, which is that safety is her concern and she just wants him to be safe and that the situation at home isn't safe. But navigating those conversations was really difficult for her, and trying to, change that kind of relationship that they had where, he was the father, she's the daughter, she always does what he says. So, and deep down, she wants him to be happy. She wants him to be on board with it. And so just looking for some advice when we have these really tough situations where the parent is absolutely not on board, not willing, what are some of the things that we can kind of coach the kids through to help them have these conversations, or things that are going to be impactful?
Yeah, this one hits base very, very strongly because one of my grandmothers, she's going through a process of dementia, and she's getting increasingly more dependent. She lives right across the street from me. It was one of the reasons why I decided to move in there, and she's refusal of moving into a community. She keeps on saying that she will go when she needs to, and I keep on asking her, but what's the sign that you need? What's this when you feel that you need to? When is that? What are you waiting for? Angel Gabriel to knock on the door? Like, what is the? She can't really answer, because I think that's just a way to shift the conversation away, because then she transfers this into a very emotional manipulation, like, you don't want me, you don't like me, you want me to push away, so this is how she defends from this conversation. So it becomes very emotional. So basically, I know very, very well this situation, not just from this, but also from professional, because professionally I've dealt with this many times. When we come to a situation like this, I think there's a lot of suffering associated from everybody. So people are frustrated, people want to age in place. That's more than known. That's going to be the future, I think, because if we follow the trend of designing services according to people's desires and expectations, our clients' desire and expectation is more and more to age in place. The problem is that we don't have resources, financing, policy for that. But I think in 500 years time it's going to be like that. But for the now, what we have a solution there are the communities, we have some home care, we have some home assistance, we have, and many times all falls upon the family, which are overwhelmed, overloaded with work, overwhelmed and overloaded with the task associated to caregiving, and many times quite I don't want to offend, but quite incompetent in doing so. Like, I would love to be a good caregiver, but I really don't know how. I don't have the competencies for that. So it is very, very frustrating and overwhelming and overburdening. So naturally, people will look out for a solution that is more securing. But then comes the conflict of interest, like who is in charge. So power conflict arises, and what is more important? Is it safety or freedom? And there's no right answer for this. Like because on the power conflict, both sides will think they are right. Okay, and in terms of safety and freedom, it is very, very tough, because some people are more prone for safety and they're willing to give away their freedom in order to feel safe. There are people that are more towards freedom and they're not going to give away their freedom for any safety. Okay, so we have to be aware that not necessarily when we talk to people like this that we're just talking because it's people are being difficult. They have their reasons, they have their understanding. I've done it many times and it's difficult, but it's very rewarding, which is to talk to the family in order for them to understand that respecting the person's decision, it is many times the best outcome in terms of quality of life, even if that shortens that life. And that's where the difficulty comes, because ethically, morally, we might think that we are dooming this person, we are neglecting this person, we're actively killing this person by not acting. And this is very difficult for us to accept, that sometimes to give in to the person's will, it is actually to promote their well-being. So that's why in Humanitude we talk about well-being. We don't talk about healing people, improving people's quality of life, or well-being is a very subjective state. It's basically, I ask you, how do you feel? Are you all right? If you say yes, you're good, you're well-being, you have a good quality of life. If I say, how do you feel? And you say, I feel miserable. Okay, you don't have a good well-being. So as long as you tell me that you're all right, I am doing a good job, regardless of what my job was, even if my job was to do nothing. Of course, this can hurt us a lot, and it does, because I had situations that I had to turn away from a situation that I could clearly see that the person needed help, but they were refusing my help. But the problem is that if I impose my help is not help, it's an attack, it's an offense. So if we want to help people, people need to want our help. And how do they want our help? When they trust us, when they feel safe around us, when they, many times we have to accept a little thing and then increase those things. Basically, I cannot, for example, for this situation, this gentleman will never accept to leave his home, like tomorrow you're going to move in. Okay. I think it's step by step. Does he ever leave his home? Does he even go shopping, for example? Does he even go for dinner at their place? How long does he stay for dinner at their place? Because many times this is what we've started to do with my grandmother. Start to go for dinners at people's places. So she feels this, in one way, the discomfort, because she's not comfortable with that. She's staying away from her control, safety area, comfort zone. But also, as she does this, okay, one, she gets more adjusted to the idea that she's leaving, but also she gets confronted to the idea that, there are a lot of things that are messy and confusing and I don't understand. Okay, so this leads to, so maybe, you see how this is going to link, that when you go to the community, it's not going to work out. Ultimately, I have situations that people stayed at home and people died at home from a fall. My work was to reassure the family that they did their best in order to provide the best care possible, respecting the person's wishes. And he says, by verbatim, I'd rather die in here. So he will. But if he doesn't, if we move him into a community, he will die faster. We see this phenomena that it's called, depending on the literature, a sliding syndrome or a failure to thrive syndrome. And we've all seen it. We work in the field, we've seen it. It's people that move in and they're perfectly fine biologically, but they come in such a denial state that a major depressive episode gets in, an opportunist disease comes up, and within a week, the person is dead. Like, there was no physiological reason for this, but the fact that the person did not want to live in there, they just quit from this life altogether, and they fade off. So the literature is starting to refer this as a failure to thrive, which is adapted from the pediatric syndrome or the sliding syndrome. If you look it up, there's not a lot of literature, but it starts to come up. So to transfer the person into the community does not necessarily translate into a better quality of life, neither into a longer life. Okay. But for this, we need to come to terms with ourselves that we are doing good care even when we are not doing anything. Because if when I leave that person, the person feels better than before, then I did good care. When I leave that person, the person doesn't feel good, my care was not good. Okay, so this is kind of bringing it back to basics. It's very hard, but as I say many times, it's a mental knot. Like, it's something that we really strongly believe, and we have a lot of morality and a lot of values that we need to discuss. And when we start to talk about this more one-on-one, they can even be offensive. I can feel hurt by hearing someone telling me that I'm not doing a good job by putting my father into a community. Because that's the best I can do. That's what's out there, and that's what everybody's doing, and this is the best community around, and he really needs it. How come you come to tell me that this is not a good thing to do? it can be very, very offensive. So be careful with the words, be careful with the approach, try to see where the person is coming from, but try to show that the person's wishes are something to value, are something to give credit to.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it really boils down to a fear of loss of independence. I mean, the senior is scared. They want to keep their home, and they think they can continue in their home until the end of life. And safety is a big factor. I mean, families are worried about their safety, especially if he was in the yard all day. That's not safe at all. And I actually shared the same family story about my grandmother needing senior care, and she was very reluctant. So it's funny how we're in the industry and we still have the same struggles as most families. But I think educating families and reminding them that we're not like the old nursing home 20 years ago. And most senior communities and livings arrangements have changed into like a resort environment. I mean, it's amazing how quality of life changes, when they're social and engaging and getting the care that they need. So
Anyway, I think I have enough. Anyway, again, like if this is not really down to what you are looking for, hit me up. We can have a chat, specifically about the cases. Transitioning slowly can be a big help. Starting to bring the people out of their comfort zone slowly, always make them feel in control. Like it's a negotiation. I'll go there. Okay. Ultimately, bottom line. Okay, we've lost all hope. We've tried everything. He's gonna die in the field. He's dying happy. Okay, if he dies happy, okay, he died happy. Nobody's happy with this solution. I know, but yeah, we need to come to terms to it as well.
Yeah. So we had a question come in that we want to share, and so this comes from Jennifer, and it says, "What are your thoughts on adaptive clothing?"
That's a fancy word for restraint, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here I am being not very correct. No? Okay, so please elucidate me, Benjamin. Yeah, sure. That's fine. Yeah, perfect. That's occupational therapy associated. Yeah, so it's perfect. Yeah, that's fine. As long, so yeah, I was being a bit prejudiced. Sorry about that. I was thinking because, sometimes you have those onesies and you have things like that are coming up in the industry, but they actually work as a restraint tool, which we do not go very well with. Basically, we have a rule of art that restraint only when needed and with a prescription and with a compensation period, meaning like when is the person not with that restraint. And still, let's I don't know how to put it politically correct, but sometimes they're overused, sometimes they're not disclaimed, and that's when the problem comes in. Okay, so but if it's something that it was made on purpose, let's for example Velcro shoes, are they adaptive clothing? I think they fit the description that Benjamin gave us. Of course they're fine. There you go. So yeah, it's perfect, no problem, as long as they are respectful enough of the person's style and I mean, for example, if I never wear sweatpants. It's not my case. I wear, but I know people that for them to wear sweatpants is like the worst thing you can do. So for those people, no, that's not good. But you also have sweatpants that look a bit fancier, So if you can find something that looks towards the style, inclining to the style that the person is used to. You have a lady that always wore skirts. Now to wear pants can be a bit disrespectful. So I think all these solutions that come from occupational therapy, rule of thumb, they're good. Sometimes we just need to put a bit of our thinking cap. Like, how would I feel? Would I like to use it? It's very simple. Would you wear it and go to Starbucks, for example? Like, if the answer is yes, okay, sounds like it's a good thing. If it's a no, I'd be embarrassed to be outside with it. It's like, okay, so maybe it's not a good solution.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like if it continues their independence, it would definitely be a good solution.
Yeah, that's it. If they're comfortable, if they're suitable, if they're aesthetically pleasing, why not? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we're coming up on our final question, and thank you, John, for taking your time to help us answer these questions for families. It's
My
been
pleasure.
been very enlightening, and I know it's a different time zone over there, so
Yeah, it's a big difference. Yeah.
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 But
I'm already tomorrow for you guys. This is already tomorrow. I'm in the future. There you go.
So this is Olivia, and she is the daughter of Aaron Kelch, our CEO. So Olivia has a question. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Olivia, and I'm a director of community relations at Kelch Communities. And one of the questions that families are asking us a lot that can be challenging to answer at times is the dynamic with COVID and how we're handling that in the state of Washington here. I have families coming from different sides of the spectrum. Some families are really upset when we have to quarantine and they're not able to see their family members. Other families are coming from other sides of the spectrum as far as the vaccination goes. It can just be a tricky topic to dive into with families and know how to navigate that and kind of be the middle person. So I was curious to know if you had any advice on that, on how to answer and comfort families and communicate perspective from whichever side they're coming from. So trying to walk with the families through this can often be a very challenging balance to hold and comfort them and be there for them along the way. So I was curious to know if you had any good advice on that, how to actually do that from my position, from say a community's position.
Yeah, that's a bummer. That's really a big one, because yeah, you find all sorts of opinions about it. The thing is to do with again, safety and freedom, and that's where the opinions come about. Why people oppose and why people are for, it's safety and freedom. How much are you willing to give one for the other? To be honest, there's no easy solution there. What we've seen, okay, and this is because many times the restrictions have been governmentally imposed as well. So when you're stuck against the wall, there's not much you can do. So it's very easy to shift the responsibility to a third party if that's the case. I absolutely agree with you. I understand your point of view. I see where you're coming from. But that's all we can do, really. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that I don't care for you. It's not that I don't care for. Okay, so if there's a third party to throw the ball to, sometimes it is very good for us not to take the hit, because otherwise we're going to be the ones to blame. But what we've seen as well is that at the beginning we had no clue about any of this, and we were very much afraid, and we became very protective, and well done so at the time. But we're starting to realize that there are measurements that are more efficient, measures that are more efficient than others. Okay, so obviously, if you're against the wall by government restriction, you have nothing you can do. If you have margin, then I think you should start establishing policies that allow people to decide for themselves and to accommodate that risk. And why do I mean this? It means that many times people expect a certain level of freedom, but then they come to demand the safety. So people need to understand that if I am going to give you more freedom, I will compromise the safety. Okay? But then comes the overall decision, is the safety of the group as well, because I can accommodate your wishes because you are one individual, but is that respectful towards the others? Because my freedom ends where other people's freedom begins. So am I free to go outside with my car very loud pumping at night? The answer is depends. If there's no one within a large range, sure. If it's the middle of the city, no, because you are disturbing other people's choice of being quiet. So the idea that I am free to do everything I want is a bit of a fallacy. It's not true. I can do anything I want as long as it doesn't disrespect or disturb anyone else. Right? So you are free, but does that compromise the other people's safety? And that's where the problem comes in. If it does, then we cannot, because of one, compromise 50. All right. So, and after you come to terms to this decision, like how far can you go? Can you allow visits with a social distancing? Can you allow visits with the protective equipment? Can you allow visits with barriers in between? Can you allow visits with through digital or keeping distance, or some, like some places did, like, you know, keeping like a wall apart? Can you call in every day? Can you talk to your mother? Can she call you? Can you call us? Can we answer you? Like, how far can you go in order to assure this? Uh, and then once you come to terms, I think you adhere to policy. And I know this can be difficult because many times we're talking about client and serving the clients, but we should be very coherent with our own values, which is, if this is what we believe and this is what we know that works and this is what is really the best, this is what we do. If you go into McDonald's asking for something that they're not suited to do, they're going to tell you, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go and look that somewhere else. And it's the same with our industry. You know, like if you have a home with a specific design, with a specific service in mind, with certain practices and values in place and policies, you're a client. I cannot be shifting my policies left and right just because different clients come along. I know this is very difficult because obviously we want to serve and we want to please and we want satisfaction, and it's very difficult. And people are becoming quite opinionated, and this is something that is demanding a change on the service design that we have. But as I say, in health, there's no 100% guarantee and there's no money back. You know, uh, so it is something that we need to come to terms. You know, very tranquil, very calmly. But if we're coming to a point that really there's no negotiation possible, we only start the negotiation if we're willing to let go. Okay, so that's when the best negotiations are done, when we have nothing to lose really. So be calm about it. If we go into the details of the misinformation of what is right and what is wrong, and if you go into the theories, the conspiracy, try to steer away from those things, because you know there's rights and wrongs in everywhere. So I think, personal opinion here, I think what we did wrong was to say from the first minute that we had no clue about it. We don't know. And since we don't know, we're going to be trying, and we're going to be trying our best, and we're going to be trying really hard at the beginning, and then we're going to soften up, and then we realize we softened too much, and then okay, so this is something that we should be more transparent. I think people created an idealization of safety and an idealization of freedom that they don't really exist, you know. So I'm sorry to be such a nihilist in this conversation, but the truth is that nature is it is what it is. We're trying our best. We think we know. We think we're very smart as humans, but there's so much we don't know. And to go into discussion of the unknown, good luck. We could be here the whole day. It's like,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, these are very challenging questions, and they definitely take a lot of time to have the right answer. And every situation is going to be very unique. So, I mean, a lot of people have seen the challenge of COVID over the last year and a half, and you know, there's no quick answer. So,
with COVID, I see people very afraid of losing connection, and they do very quickly. Okay, so try to find a solution to keep connection with. How are you going to connect this person with the community and with the family? And this is our priority. If you have to do quarantine, you do quarantine. If you don't have to do quarantine, you at least do until you have a safe result that assures you that there's no issue on that. And if you can visit, you visit with what kind of cautions? What are your precautionary measures? Nowadays, with the quick tests, they're very accessible, inexpensive at the moment. So, well, I mean, where I come from, so maybe I shouldn't be talking so openly, but yeah. So I think stick to those plans, stick to that policy, and once you have that policy, that's where the negotiation is. You know, this is where the take it or leave it kind of situation. I'm sorry, not to be disrespectful. If the conversation goes to parts that you don't control, you say that, yeah, I understand, but maybe you have information that I don't have, and I'm sorry. Kind of. It's tough. It is very tough. I think this question links to another one that is even higher, is like, what service are we expecting from the communities, and can we provide that service according to those expectations? And we need to be very transparent to the yes or no's, and be honest with ourselves, because once we do, we start realizing what can we not, and we can start explaining people why we don't. It's not because we don't want to, it's because we cannot. It's not because I don't like you, it's because I don't know how. It's, we have limits. Okay, I understand you would expect the world, but that's all I have. So it's nothing personal. It's, I love you, I love your mother, I would love to have your mother with me. Is it possible for her to live here until 140? No. Is it because I'm gonna kill her? No. It's just, that's how things work. And I wish there was another way. I really wish, but what can I do? Why you're just putting that frustration on me? Yeah, it's a transparent conversation, really, eye to eye. Mind always, and I've talked that about the other times, mind the tone of voice. Try to finish the questions when the person says something, sometimes word it the same way, like, so you mean this? Is this what you meant? People feel heard, and obliges them to re-express themselves using another words, and many times to think what they're saying. Sometimes it doesn't come out as such a big lump. Small tricks, anyway. Yeah.
Very, very awesome and enlightening. Thank you again, John, for all of your great responses and all the questions that came in for John and myself. We appreciate it, and we're available anytime you need anything. Just want to remind everybody that that we're having another one coming up in about a month, Answers with Experts, and you can text any questions to the phone number on the screen, and so I'm going to go ahead and thank everybody who's on the live viewing and people that will be viewing later. And so next month's Answers with Experts will be with Audra and Rachel, and they are dementia experts in Texas. So appreciate everybody for joining us today, and thank you, John, so much for everything that you do.
Yeah, I want to thank you once more for the invitation. I'll reinforce the idea that it was very good that you put on these questions. They're very common and very complex. There's no one size fits all. I'm sure you already have plenty of good solutions in hand. Do not doubt of yourselves. You're good professionals. Okay, I think sometimes we don't value ourselves enough, and I think that's not fair. We're doing a really good job. We're doing the best we can, and if we don't succeed 100% of the times, it's only because we are humans. Every case is unique, so whatever answer I just gave can be completely the opposite. And if there's any specifics of anything that we've just talked that you'd like to enlighten a bit more, hit us up. Benjamin has my contact. I think it's very easy to get in touch with me, and we can see how can we work it out, really, because two heads think better than one. Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.